Thanks to Magellan TV for sponsoring today's video. InSight has been on Mars for over 2 years now and has reached the end of its original 2-year mission. However, scientists are so pleased with its success so far that NASA has agreed to extend the mission for another 2 years until December 2022. But what has InSight achieved in its time on Mars to lead to this extension? And what challenges might it face as it goes beyond its expected lifetime in the coming 2 years on the Red Planet? I'm Alex McColgan and you're watching Astrum. Together in this video we will find out what InSight has discovered, relive the highs and lows of InSight's time on Mars since we last checked in, and learn what the future holds for this incredible lander. By the end of this video, I hope I earn your like and subscription. If you watched my last video on this subject, you'll remember that the primary mission of InSight was to discover more about the formation of Mars by uncovering data about its internal formation and processes. To do this, it came equipped with a seismometer, called SEIS, to help it detect seismic activity like earthquakes or meteor impacts, and a heat probe and physical properties instrument, or the MOLE, which was to dig down 5 meters into Mars's surface to take the temperature of the red planet at different depths. However, there was a problem. When the MOLE was first deployed, it wouldn't dig. The MOLE was not designed with a drill, as this would have been too heavy to carry on the journey and would have needed a large cradle to stabilize it. Instead, scientists designed it to make its way into the surface of the planet using an internal hammering system. This would be lighter and more compact. However, the MOLE only got a few inches into the dry soil of Mars before getting stuck. It would hammer, but it wasn't going any deeper. Had it hit a rock? Scientists had chosen the landing site especially because there were few large rocks in the area, and the MOLE had been designed in such a way that it should have been able to go around small rocks. The team took their time to think through what might be causing the problem, doing their best to create a replica of the situation on Earth using data from InSight's cameras. This wasn't a perfect process, as it's impossible to perfectly mimic the lower gravitational conditions of Mars on Earth, even with replicas made from scaled down lighter materials. But by October 2019, they had figured out that the likely problem was a lack of friction. They took photos of the hole with the MOLE partially backed out and saw that the soil in this spot was different from what they'd been expecting. The MOLE had been designed with loose soil in mind, the kind that would fall in around the MOLE as it dug and provide it with the friction it needed to dig deeper. However, although the surface you see here certainly appears loose and dusty, only a few inches deeper, the scientists realized there was a layer of cemented soil known as Jury crust. The particles of Jury crust stick together more tightly, which meant they weren't falling into the hole the MOLE was creating and weren't providing the friction necessary to dig deeper. Scientists hadn't realized that this type of soil was there when they picked the site for landing. But what were the scientists going to do about it? While InSight is equipped with a robotic arm, the top of the MOLE was not designed to be grabbed by this arm, so they couldn't just move it to another position. And as you can see here, there is a delicate cable designed to relay data from the MOLE back to InSight, which could be damaged if they push down on the top of the MOLE with the arm. So the first plan was to place the arm next to the digging MOLE, pinning the MOLE in place. Perhaps this would provide the friction necessary to get it started. However, this proved not to be enough. Next, the team tried to scoop soil into the hole the MOLE had created. This also proved unsuccessful. Finally, in October 2020, a full year later, scientists tried to push the top of the MOLE with the robotic arm. Although this did cause the MOLE to successfully completely bury itself, the hopes that this raised were soon dashed when the team realized that the MOLE would not go any deeper on its own. By January 14, 2021, the team had given up on the MOLE altogether, although they still felt they'd learned valuable information for future missions about the nature of Martian soils. Fortunately, InSight's other scientific equipment was working much more effectively. SEIS, the seismometer, was doing a much better job in providing a glimpse into Mars's inner workings. SEIS has been listening to the sounds of Mars for over 2 years now, and has detected over 500 different seismic events. Mars does not have tectonic plates like Earth does, but it does have volcanic regions that produce earthquakes from time to time. SEIS can pick up vibrations from these earthquakes, which gives it a clearer idea of the makeup of the planet's mantle and inner core. Scientists have learned 3 interesting things from all this data. First, Mars tends to have frequent but small earthquakes, none more powerful than magnitude 3.7. Scientists are surprised that they've detected nothing more powerful given how frequent smaller earthquakes are happening, and are still piecing together why this might be. Perhaps Mars is more static than was expected, or perhaps we simply haven't been lucky enough to witness a big one. It's too early to tell for certain. Second, the wind hides earthquakes. Because SEIS is so sensitive, it can hear the vibrations caused by the wind, and sometimes this masks the vibrations of small earthquakes, like static on a radio. During the windier parts of Mars's yearly cycle, the number of earthquakes appears to go down, but this is likely just because SEIS isn't detecting them. Scientists are currently planning to use the mechanical arm to bury parts of the seismometer, as this might reduce the interference from the wind. Finally, and strangely, these earthquakes are missing surface waves. All earthquakes create waves. 2 of the main types, primary waves and secondary waves, travel through the mantle. However, normally there are also surface waves that run along the surface of the planet crust, and for some reason these have never been detected on Mars. Scientists are still not quite sure why, but wonder if this is evidence of extensive fracturing of the upper 10 kilometers of Mars's crust, which might be diffusing the waves. To find out, we will have to wait and see. InSight has a difficult task ahead of it. Over the 2 years it's been here, dust has built up on its 2 solar panels. Scientists had hoped that dust devils would blow away this wind in cleaning events, but so far this hasn't happened. In February 2021, InSight was only collecting 27% of the power it would have been collecting had the dust not been there, and this is potentially a big problem. Martian temperatures can drop from 0 degrees Celsius during the day to as low as minus 100 degrees Celsius during the night. Without onboard heaters, these temperature swings could really damage InSight's onboard circuitry. So scientists have a delicate juggling act on their hands. They must decide where to send InSight's dwindling power reserves, to the arm, to the SEIS reader, to the radio, or to the vital heaters that keep InSight alive. And with Mars entering its winter period, as well as aphelion, the time in Mars's year when it's furthest from the Sun, they have decided to settle InSight down to hibernate, using its precious power mostly on keeping its circuitry warm and safe. However, scientists are hopeful that come July, as Mars gets closer to the Sun again, InSight can bring its other equipment back online and the science can continue. The data collected by InSight has very real implications for us. Knowing the inner workings of Mars can help us compare that to how Earth operates, which can give us a more complete view of how all the terrestrial planets formed. Another planet of particular interest is Venus, and how we believe it went from a potentially habitable planet to becoming inhospitable. There is a great episode in the Cosmic Journey series on Magellan TV where they deep dive into what happened to our sister planet. Magellan TV is a subscription streaming platform which you can use on pretty much any device, dedicated to the best documentaries on science and technology, with a whole host of fascinating space videos. If you wanted to check out the Venus Death of a Planet video I just mentioned, or if you want to check out that huge library for yourself, you can use my link in the description to get a 1-month free trial. I highly recommend giving it a go. So there we have it, a recap of everything InSight has done and achieved since the last video. If you missed that video, you can check it out here. Be sure to like and subscribe for more space videos, and a big thanks to my patrons and members. If you want to support the channel and have your name added to this list, check the links in the description. All the best, and see you next time.